Today's episode is brought to you by Freedom Project Academy. Looking for a K-12 classical online school built on Judeo-Christian values? FPA is enrolling now for the fall. Request your free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com.
It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. Before we get started, we need you to please hit that share button. For obvious reasons, we want you to share. All right, we're kicking things off with Vicki McKenna and Culture Cast. Vicki, it is always good to see you. How are you?
Great to see you. I'm doing well, thanks.
Good. And we got a very interesting story and a lot of background. Kiel, city in Wisconsin. We got a couple of young boys who've been suspended and are facing a Title IX investigation, literally a Title IX investigation for misgendering fellow students. Talk about what's happening here.
Well, originally the parents were told, these are three boys, 8th grade boys, were told that their sons were being investigated for sexual harassment. So they thought, what did my kid do to my kid? Molest somebody? Did my child, lay hands? Did he commit a crime? And it took them some time to actually get specific information. They never really got super specific information. At least when I talked to the attorney for these boys, they hadn't as of just a day or two ago. They were finally told that the sexual harassment allegations were because the boys were overheard referring to a female student who had declared herself to be non-binary with the female pronoun she, her, etc. So this girl had no confirmation that these boys were talking about her. She made an assumption, and that turned into a Title IX investigation, at least according to the attorney.
Yeah, and that shows you how out of whack it is. Contrast this to Loudoun County, Virginia, where they were so eager to protect transgender boys who identified as women from sexual assault in bathrooms, that they flat out lied to the moms and dads and lied to the own school board, to this, where we have a hearsay account of using the wrong pronoun. And look at how swift and how savagely justice is dealt
Indeed.
out to the offenders.
So, I'm not sure, there really wasn't any indication from the attorney. I mean, when the attorney can't get specific information, that's a problem. But when I had talked to the attorney, a woman named Corey Brewer from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, and I said, well, who pursued this? Was this something that was, that was presented to an adult? Was this an adult that had heard these children do this? Was there anything else involved? She says, you know what, we're really not quite sure. We believe that it was the girl who had overheard the boys using female pronouns, and she preferred to be referred to as they or whatever, a plural pronoun rather than a singular pronoun. And what I do know is that there's a Title IX coordinator, and it was ultimately the decision of the Title IX coordinator at the school to pursue an official Title IX investigation. And these boys could be in some trouble for this. It certainly would stay on their record, and it would follow them. Mind you, they're 12 years old.
You're suggesting to me that it's not enough to use pronouns of choice when you're directly addressing someone, but in your private or secondary conversations,
yes,
you must
these were
as
secondary
well.
conversations.
Okay.
Yes, this is compelled speech, by the way, and
yes,
I would love to have someone please explain to me how compelling speech is not a flagrant violation of the First Amendment. It is no worse a violation of the First Amendment than denying speech, and that is what these 12-year-old boys are being told they have to do, even in their private lives and private conversations. They are expected to be compelled to utter things that they don't believe, that they do not support. And that's where we are. And right now, at least this story got some attention. I wonder how many times this goes on across the United States where nobody's paying attention and Blaze Media doesn't do a story on it.
Let me go to the video because it's well worth a watch.
I received a phone call from the principal over at the elementary school forewarning me, letting me know that I was going to be receiving an email with sexual harassment allegations against my son.
Rosemary Rabidou's 13-year-old son, Braden, is one of the 3 8th-grade Kiel Middle School students accused of sexual harassment, something she disputes.
He said he's being allegedly charged with sexual harassment for not using proper pronouns.
According to the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, or WILL, now defending the accused students, in March, one of their peers announced the pronouns they prefer to be addressed as, they or them. One of the alleged incidents Braden and the others were supposedly involved in happened in April.
She had been screaming at one of Braden's friends to use proper pronouns, calling him profanity, and this friend is, very soft-spoken and kind of just sunk down into his chair. And Braden finally came up defending him, saying he doesn't have to use proper pronouns. It's his constitutional right to not use. You can't make him say things.
Some might say or think that you or your son are against the LGBTQ plus community.
Not at all. Not at all. My children have been raised to love everybody equally.
Shortly after finding out her son was being investigated, Rosemary reached out to Will.
Title IX sexual harassment typically covers things like rape, dating violence, quid pro quo sexual favors, right? Really egregious stuff. There's nothing even remotely close to that. The charge against students for sexual harassment is an extreme abuse of the Title IX process. It's totally inappropriate and is totally being mishandled by the school district.
After the break, let's you and I dissect. There's a lot there. Let's not talk about it. We'll come right back.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
All right, back with Vicki McKenna and CultureCast Part 2. Vicki, so there's a lot in that video. Boy, oh boy, there's a lot. I myself have faced 2 Title IX complaints as in the course of being a university professor. Both of them were equally silly. I had actually one young girl, a woman who considered herself transgender, accused me of offending her and harassing her because the books we were reading in class were not books written by Democrats. She objected to the politics of the books. Rather than throwing that out, the university went into a lengthy investigation of me. I've seen how exhausting and expensive and shockingly just horrific getting accused of this is, especially for something as trivial as this. And even that reporter, right? You had to get in there. Really, how is this not a case of LGBTQ plus people and their allies attacking regular boys rather than the LGBTQ may not think that you like them very much?
Well, I'll say this, in listening to that description from the mom, that it sounds like the aggressor was the girl. It sounds like she was looking for a way to attack these boys because, these boys couldn't be convinced perhaps that she was in fact a male. I'm not sure, but it sounds like there's a lot more to the story that the school was not sharing, and that in fact the girl was the aggressor. The girl who demanded to be called they was the aggressor here. At least that's what that story made it sound like. Another thing about the reporter, though, and some people say that it suggests that your boys do not appreciate the LGBTQ plus community or whatever. What the hell community? LGBTWTF. I mean, are you kidding me? Community. It's not like, they're all living in the same address. They all have similar inclinations. Suddenly we've got this community that we're not supposed to offend. And what are the rules of this community? What are we supposed to all do for this community, since this community seems to be changing its mind about what it wants to be referred to, how it would like to alter grammar in the English language, and that seems to change day by day. So could we get, sort of a translation on what the rules of and the belief system of this particular community that do not seem to be hanging out together in any single place? Could we get a read on that so that we don't run afoul of the delicate sensibilities of a girl who's obviously a girl, not liking the fact that other people do not want to bend reality in the same way she does.
I love what you just said, and I'm going to go one step further. We know what this is. This is a scattered group of highly confused kids confused by idiot adult parents and by an entire system, a school system of left-leaning, primarily liberal women who have convinced themselves, straight women, who have convinced themselves that they must be the thought and grammar police for the one transgender person you have in your 1,500-seat school. That's what this is. There's no community. It's a cabal of nosy, pushy Karens out there in the public school system looking for trouble to demonstrate their bona fides.
Yes, and nosy, pushy Karens looking for trouble who act as political activists instead of actual educators. You know, another thing that absolutely boggles the mind is this, we just make things up. So we can just make it up. I mean, we don't need to use proper grammar any longer. You can use plural pronouns for singular individuals. And then if you actually say, no, wait a second, that actually violates the rules of grammar, you're mispronouncing. So we're making up words too. The new word mispronouncing, a completely made up word, and that is what those boys were accused of and now face a sexual harassment complaint because they mispronounced. Again, mispronounced privately, not even publicly, but that's what, and now they're on the hook for potentially, who knows what kind of punishment due to this. This is a violation of federal law, so who knows what kind of punishment due to this investigation.
I have to ask, is that MS pronouncing in the feminist way, or is it MIS pronouncing? That's a rhetorical question. I had a colleague.
Mispronouncing rather than mispronouncing?
This is how bad it is. I have a colleague at the university who came up to me the other day and said to me that if a student wants to write his paper or her paper in emojis, you should pat them on the back for being creative and give them an A. Because all language is there's no such thing as right language, wrong language. However people write, that's how they write. So you see how bad it's gotten. And I suppose we should at least show you the perfunctory response of the school to our inquiries, right? The KASD prohibits all forms of bullying. Evidently you don't, because you're bullying those boys. The KASD prohibits all forms of bullying and harassment in accordance with all laws, including Title IX. It will continue to support all students, regardless of sex, including transgender, change of sex, or gender. So you're going to protect everybody, but you explicitly don't list heterosexuals.
Right, and they're not protecting those boys. The bullies are the girl who made the accusation, the Title IX coordinator, and all of the adults who have decided to drag these boys through an idiotic federal investigation on Title IX. They're not there to support those boys. They are adults, and the power dynamic is so out of whack, and it is those powerful adults that are now harassing and bullying these boys. And if what that mother said was true, then in fact the real bully was the girl who went after the boys, who seemed to have a problem with these boys. But it doesn't appear that she's being investigated for bullying boys. Those boys don't have they don't stand a chance. They don't have a single advocate except for their mothers and the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. There is no counselor, there is no advisor, there is no administrator, there is no teacher who is going to stand shoulder to shoulder with those boys and say, stop it. And at what point, by the way, can we expect adults to actually recognize when their reaction is so far out of whack to something that actually happened, something so minor, and they've turned it into literally a federal case?
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
It's time for Reclaiming America with our counterculture mom, Tina Griffin. Tina, hello.
Hey, what's up? We got some TikTok disaster story here again today.
Ooh, let's get right to it. We have a family that's suing TikTok after a child dies from a blackout challenge. What's a blackout challenge?
Yeah, well, the good news is she's suing. That's the only good news of this story. Pennsylvania mother is suing TikTok after she says her 10-year-old daughter died from attempting a viral challenge on social media at TikTok. It's called Blackout Challenge. It encourages participants, Dr. Duke, to choke themselves with belts, purse strings, or anything similar that can help them hold their breath until they pass out. I can't even believe that these challenges are going out there and that people are not being caught and persecuted. Tiwania Anderson says she found her daughter Nyla unconscious in their home after she tried the blackout challenge, taken to a local hospital, but she died 4 days later, and now they are suing TikTok. I'm glad she is suing.
It's the dangerous new trend happening in schools and behind closed doors.
And my head hit the wall.
It's called the Blackout Challenge, daring children to hold their breath until they pass out.
Heaps of my mates were doing it, so I just gave it a go.
But this 14-year-old vows to never do it again after one of his friends was taken to hospital.
I was a bit scared for him and worried.
Last week, paramedics responded to an alarming number of calls where students had to be treated for seizures and head injuries.
There was 4 calls in 1 hour in southeast Queensland, and all of those children needed transport to hospital.
In the US, the challenge claimed the life of 10-year-old Nyla Anderson and left 12-year-old Joshua Haley-Eusis brain dead.
When you reflect on how the public schools, on top of this kind of garbage, are pushing them on all sorts of roads, is it any real wonder why we've got these startling rises in transgenderism? It has nothing to do with people's gender. It's about trending and it's about fads. It's alarming.
It's killing, literally killing our kids. And I have something I want to describe for the parents wondering how can these kids even get their hands on this stuff. This is how it breaks down. The suit claims that Nyla was likely exposed to the challenge on TikTok on a page called For You. Here's what's nuts. For You as a 10-year-old, it shouldn't be for anybody. It claims that the company is negligent and has a defective design because its algorithm determined that the blackout challenge would have been an interest to this 10-year-old girl whose mom says was active, healthy, incredibly intelligent child. TikTok, however, says the disturbing challenge predates their platform and that people learn about it from other sources. Let me just say that is not the case, Dr. Duke. It's from TikTok. They claim they're vigilant about their commitment to the user safety and have made it impossible to look for videos using the hashtag blackout challenge. They think they have safety measures, Dr. Duke. The garbage that I've seen on TikTok, I just go on there for research, and within 3 seconds, I'm seeing pornography. There's nothing safe about TikTok. I'm contemplating, do I go on there and create a platform in order to witness to young kids? A lot of me says yes, but for the garbage you got to go through in order to do that, the other part of me says no.
Well, from real horror to Hollywood horror, we've got a lesbian vampire romance aimed at teens. It's a lesbian relationship between a lichen, a wolf, and a vampire.
I'm from a lineage thousands of years old of the best monster hunters to ever walk the earth.
Even on good days, I feel like I still don't fit in. Like everyone else has it all figured out.
Oh yeah, that.
Addicted to loving you, how does it feel?
You're nothing like the monsters I grew up hating.
I just want to live my life. We can't be together. It won't work. I've forbidden you from seeing her.
Faced everyone, monster and human, who tried to come between us. We got this.
I'll kill for you.
And of course, it's those evil mothers who are the bigots. You should know better.
Dr. Duke, I'm literally watching that trailer thinking, how much worse is it going to get for our kids? The title of that series, First Kill, blows my mind. I feel like I am ready to take someone out myself if they try to harm my kids, and then my heart goes out to the millions of kids around this country that are unknowingly being deceived and the deception behind getting gravitating to this kind of program, getting engaged in it, believing the lies coming from it. Half the parents don't know this stuff is pumping out and these kids are watching it without parents' knowledge. The other half of the parents don't care, and it's killing me because our kids are paying the price because of it.
One major answer is your website and your productions. Tell us how we find them.
Download the Counterculture Mom app, click on Premium, and you will get an update before Hollywood dishes out this hogwash trash for our kids. You'll know what to watch out for. And also, half of our alerts, Dr. Duke, are positive, so you can get your hands on some great entertainment that won't land up with your kids in prison, dead, passing out because of a challenge. TikTok, right now I give it 2 thumbs down. You don't want to have your kids on TikTok. Have them use their brains right now to create a social media platform that's positive, doing something for the world that we can actually make a difference in. And everyone will be gravitating that direction because people are wanting positive. There's just a lack of it. Get the app, Counterculture Mom app. Check out Freedom Project Media. Get that app. Watch our program. Share our program all over the place. Reclaiming America. It is time that we safely protect our kids from this garbage from Hollywood. If we say no, they will have no one watching the program. Sponsors will drop, and we'll see less trash out there on Netflix and other platforms.
Hello everyone, I'm Katie, and it's time for Trending Left. We've compiled some of just a few of the craziest of stories making waves across the interwebs for your viewing pleasure. And today we're going to start with a child psychologist in New York by the name of Dr. Samantha Busa. During a recent online training, she claimed it was very important to teach young children about gender identity and sexual orientation because, as an expert, all children like playing with their genitals. Watch this.
A question I'm often asked, or people around the dinner table will say to me, you know, kids are too young for a gender identity and sexual orientation, aren't they? And so I want to ask all of you, so Brian, you can pull up our first poll. What do you think comes first from a developmental standpoint? Gender identity, sexual behavior, or sexual orientation? So the vast majority of people say gender identity. I asked this question on purpose because it's a bit of a stumper. For those of you who answered sexual behavior, the 43 out of the 237 who were out there, you are correct. We actually know that sexual behavior is the first thing to develop for youth. We know that, and this is, I think, in some ways where people get tripped up. We're considering sort of self-pleasuring masturbation as part of sexual behavior here. We know that in utero, we see children playing with their genitals.
I'm sorry, come again? As you heard, the great doctor there, she fooled you, much like they're trying to do to children by making them think that they need to be touching their genitals. But the main part there was at the very end. In utero is when the children play with themselves, which, hey, she just acknowledged that babies are in utero. Babies. Now, speaking of pushing adult agendas on little kids, a sad video of a little boy has been going viral across social media. As you'll see, a mother tries to make a case for her warped worldview by encouraging her son to wear a dress at school, and of course, she had to film it in a changing room for all of the world to see, like you.
Okay, hold on. You love it, and you want it, and you picked it out, but you don't want it for school. Can you tell me why?
Because last time I wore a dress to school, everybody called me a girl.
Oh. Do you think bright, pretty colors and dresses and sequins and jewels and golds, all the things that you always want to wear, do you think that's your innermost you?
It is.
Well, how are you going to be your innermost you when we live in a place that people think clothing belongs to particular gender?
If you are going to interrogate someone, don't you usually take them, to the police department and then shine that bright light on them? But instead, now it's 2022, these moms are taking their little children into changing rooms and then videoing them and then putting that across the internet. If that's not child abuse, then, well, what is? Next, we're going to move on to a video posted by a self-proclaimed queer surgeon who says it's so important for young girls to go on puberty blockers early to stop the breast growth because, the alternative is they'll have to have it cut off by a surgeon, like him, when they are teenagers. And I will take door number 3, please.
So I'm here to clarify and speak some truths about what's happening with gender-affirming care in adolescence. Most of the bills that are going through right now aim to limit this care for people under the age of 18. And there's this false narrative that a lot of teenagers are having gender-affirming surgery. Most of the teenagers that are having surgery are getting chest surgery, and most of that is happening before 18 because these individuals didn't have access to early enough medical treatment. So using surgery as sort of this false narrative to attack gender-affirming care as a whole is not correct. The truth is that by limiting access to medical care with some of these bills, you're actually going to cause more people to need gender-affirming surgical care.
The genderqueer doctor is just so proud to mutilate children that in his latest tweets he stated, "I perform gender-affirming mastectomies, top surgeries." for 3 young adults and adolescents today. All had supportive parents present. You could see the family relief the second we wheeled back to the OR. I could sense the shift. We made it. We have a chance. But like, the way he's talking, does he not understand that he's talking himself out of a job? Because he is a surgeon, and so he's giving the surgery to these young girls. But if they get put on puberty blockers long before any of the, breast tissue really forms, then he doesn't have anything to cut off. So then he just talked himself out of a job. Fine. Let's wrap things up with a little cake gender. Yes, I said it. Cake gender. It's right, we've come to the point now where confused adolescents are now defining made-up genders as layers of cake. Let's see where the frosting takes us.
Okay, I would describe xenogenders as a gender that could not typically be described with terms such as masculinity, femininity, neutrality, androgyny, things like that. It's more of not how you relate to a particular gendered experience, but more of how you relate to things. For example, cake gender. I know a few people who personally use this. It's typically described as them feeling light and fluffy or sweet and warm, and it's not something that you could typically describe with the terms masculine, feminine, androgynous, etc. Another example of cake gender would be if someone feels like they have different layers or flavors to their particular gender.
Now, I'm a pie person, so I guess I can only say, shut your pie hole. And that's going to wrap it up for this segment. More craziness next time.
If you have a question for Dr. Duke and Katie, please send it our way by emailing askduke@fpeusa.org.
And that's going to do it for this show. I'm Dr. Duke, and until next time, please, at my invitation, stay educated.